What's up, YouTube? It's your boy JP's on the keys, and there's two easy about in this video today. I did get some requests to look at Viking history. Definitely, I forgot who it was from, because I get a lot of comments. But we're gonna look at history summarized, the Viking Age. I was gonna look at a crash course video, but then they reminded me of like school, and I didn't want to get reminded of school because I used to watch them all the time in school. But let's just watch this one. I'm gonna leave a link down in the description. Drop more videos if you want me to learn more about the Vikings. What I know so far is, of course, the stereotypical, like the ship with like the dragon head on it, and like the 30 people sailing with the oars, and like these big brolic dudes with these beards that were like the James Harden beard times 10. And then like they got the helmet, of course, stereotypical helmets with the horns on them, and they're just like just mad testosterone, just running through and pillaging villages. That's what I know so far. Probably gonna get my whole perception changed, but it's cool. You know what I'm saying? We haven't done a history video in a while, so let's just go.
The word Viking is immensely frustrating. Our grasp on the original etymology is tenuous at best, and Viking was barely even used to label the people who went out to sea. The Europeans on the receiving end of these spontaneous blade-wielding visitors called them Northmen, Danes, Rus, or simply those jerks who trashed our monastery. And the Scandinavians behind this violent tourism didn't really tell us what they called themselves, because our first good records from them don't show up until centuries later. But history is 20% iffy nomenclature by mass, and the name has since stuck. Still though, even our modern usage is problematic, because the term often gets applied as a catch-all for medieval Scandinavia when its meaning is rather narrow. Viking is the act and associated profession of raiding, just being a pirate. Vikings themselves were a small subset of Scandinavians, but their historical impact and overwhelming cool factor earned them top billing in medieval history. So although Scandinavian does not by default equal Viking, we can describe their collective ventures under the banner of the Viking Age. To find out how it all went down and to see just how ludicrously far these Norse boys got, let's do some history. In addition to a wibbly moniker, the Vikings are also a little fuzzy in the timeline department. For narrative convenience, historians often date the age from 793 to 1066, opening with the sack of Lindisfarne Monastery and closing with the Norman conquest of England. But if Vikings are pirates, then their age should be thorough in its coverage of involuntary treasure reallocation. So really, we need to bump those numbers out by at least a few decades. Scandinavians were trading, seafaring, and occasionally plundering long before Lindisfarne. It's always tempting to imagine a culture just kind of appearing onto history as a fully formed entity, but Scandinavia had several Viking traits from early on, and the society gradually evolved through the first millennia.
So I heard that Vikings, it's like Nords, they're like Nordic, and they're Scandinavian. And that's what I've heard. Like I've heard like Nords. That's why I'm trying to get like more context on that term. Like I heard they're Nordic, and I have heard the fact that they are from Scandinavia. I mean, I knew they weren't just European, just from some random European country,
AD. Trade networks in the Iron Age reached into the Celtic and Roman worlds, and the maritime culture was already fairly robust. Scandinavia was a tough place to traverse, as inland areas were either full of trees or covered in mountains, so people and supplies had to travel by water if they wanted to get anywhere. Luckily, these guys had trees for days, so they became wizards at woodworking and shipbuilding. With the convenient training zone of the enclosed Baltic Sea, Scandinavians developed a truly brilliant ship design, using an overlapping plank construction on a long, narrow, and shallow hull. This meant that ships could sail the open sea and row along rivers, which, to the delight of Scandinavians and the abject terror of Europeans, will make the Vikings quite versatile travelers. While Scandinavia was outclassing the rest of the world in the seafaring skill tree, their land situation differed from Europe's post-Roman migratory reshuffle. Instead of kingdoms full of cities and shiny monasteries, Scandinavians lived on small farmsteads and had no overarching government. But who needs government when you have a boat full of warriors and the favor of Thor? So, by the 700s, Scandinavia Scandinavians were becoming familiar with the wider European world, sailing eastwards in the Baltic and hopping westwards to the Frisian coast. This trading was sometimes a little aggressive, on the order of buy these furs or so help me Tyr, I will axe you. But that's just piracy for you, and it worked out decently well. However, the Vikings set themselves apart by just going for it. Northern Europe and the British Isles happened to have some shiny monasteries stacked with treasure and utterly lacking any defenses, because who would be so craven as to plunder a monastery? Well, that Pollyanna delusion shattered like a stained glass window when the Vikings rolled up to the British island of Lindisfarne in 793 and trampled the place, stealing the artifacts and selling the monks they didn't kill into slavery. Because, as they soon found out, the Muslim world was incalculably rich and had a substantial market for slave imports. Christians weren't supposed to be in the slaving business, but the markets in Frisia, Rome, Venice, and Constantinople clearly weren't losing any sleep about it.
Oh, so So, of course, we have the religions plotting against each other. We have Islam, Christianity plotting. It's like, oh, you know what? You have some Catholic slaves? Oh, bet, we'll take them. Okay. You know what I'm saying? That's just interesting, you know what I'm saying? Just I don't really have much to expound on. I'm just like, this is...
Oh, Cleo, what are you meowing about? I know, slavery's bad. Come here. Here. Oh, good cat, good cat. Who's a little floofy boot? He's you. He's you. So the Vikings of the early 800s enjoyed a stunningly efficient business model. Sail, sack, steal, sell, celebrate. And the Europeans were horrified. This, dear viewer, is why some of our sources for the Vikings are so uniquely screwy. Scandinavians left some inscriptions on runestones but otherwise didn't write anything about themselves during the Viking Age, so our documentation comes from the people who lived in constant fear of being waylaid by a surprise fleet of longships. Now, as a human with functional empathy, it's obvious why these accounts are so biased, but as a historian who wishes we understood the Vikings a little bit better, it does me a big sad. We do eventually get Scandinavian sources on their history and culture, but they're about 3 centuries late and were all written post-Christianization, so we're 0 for 2 on original Norse works. And this is where archaeology especially has come in clutch for us, because settlement remains and burial patterns across Europe have been doing the heavy lifting in recent scholarship. As it happens, our newest discoveries are coming from Eastern Europe, which had long been sidelined in the Viking narrative and was inaccessible to research because of that pesky Iron Curtain. Yeah, I know, there were bigger problems in the 20th century, but Viking stuff, man, come on. Anyway, the earliest evidence we have for the old raid and trade routine comes from the system of waterways, running from the Baltic down the Volga and to the Caspian Sea. The swindle here wasn't in sacking monasteries, because there weren't any, but in trading furs, lumber, amber, and wool, plus capturing local Slavic people and selling them into slavery. The morality of that last operation was rather bankrupt, but the economics were quite the opposite. The only problem is Vikings had to work with middlemen in the Bulgar and Khazar Khaganates. So in the mid-800s, they bopped westwards away from the Volga River and onto the Dnieper. This route fed into the Black Sea and landed them right on the doorstep of the biggest and shiniest city in the Christian world, Constantinople. This being the Vikings, they tried to sack it, but the Byzantines had the benefit of actual defenses and were able to hold out just fine. They did, however,
actual defense, ye old flames. Wow, imagine getting hit with a flamethrower in that day and age. But so I see that their system of doing things is we're gonna run in your city, we're gonna try to steal everything you have. We're gonna try to sell the people. We're gonna try to sell people into slavery. We probably burn the city down, and we go back and we count what we got, and we do it again. Like, okay, this is their business model. I mean, it works for them, you know.
Become fascinated by the Vikings, whom they called Varangians, and hired some for the Emperor's personal guard. Scandinavians were thrilled to deal directly with Constantinople and built up trading towns along the Dnieper River, such as Kiev. The demographics at work here are a little murky because it seems like the Scandinavians of the so-called Rus became a minority population among the native Slavs and Finns, but research is ongoing. To the collective thrill of the Byzantine Empire, the Rus adopted Orthodox Christianity in 989, and this becomes a running plotline elsewhere in Europe. So let's jump move west and look at the Carolingian Empire. After some raiding in the early 800s, the Vikings figure out that they can make significantly more cash from gently sacking a place and then ransoming the loot and captives back to the locals. They also start exploiting entire cities for payment of Danegeld in exchange for not attacking. This process was made significantly easier by the near constant civil warring between the three Frankish kingdoms after its partition in 840, so there was zero coordinated resistance to the raids. By 865, the Vikings had cleared out Central Europe a little too well, so many hopped the channel to go bother the Isles instead. We'll go ravage England in a second, don't you worry, but at the turn of the 10th century, our beloved Northmen doubled back over to France, and the Frankish king was flat broke, so he paid them off with land. The Vikings gained the county of Rouen, which was later promoted to the Duchy of Normandy. This was great for everyone because the Vikings stopped sailing down the Seine to make a mess in Paris, and the newly settled Normans got comfy in their new digs, speaking French, adopting Christianity, and cooperating with the church administration to more effectively govern.
Oh, so it was like, you know what? Hey, if you give us money, we won't attack you. Wow. So they built up a reputation where it's like now they can basically like exploit people. They can like, hey, you're paying for protection against us. You pay us or you give us land, we won't attack you. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Imagine having that much of a stronghold on Europe coming from a small country like Scandinavia. And this is Europe in this time period where Europe is literally like European powers are literally the biggest powers in the world at this time. The Catholic Church is probably one of the most powerful institutions in the entire world. And you literally just run up in the Catholic Church and just pillage the church. You're killing all the monks. Who those he don't kill, you sell into other religions or to other people into slavery. You know what I'm saying? Like, just think about the balls you had to do that. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of balls to run up in there and just say, you know what? I know this has been like a worldwide institution, but we're just gonna run here and steal everything.
The Normans quickly stop acting like your typical Vikings and go off on their own historical trajectory, but safe to say they become a big deal. Okay, so now let's destroy the British Isles. In the early 800s, they were prime targets. Kingdoms were small and weak, and Irish monks prepared a buffet of beautifully sackable monasteries. We had the standard Viking playbook until 865, when the Great Army arrived from Francia, Denmark, and Norway to absolutely wreck shop. In the span of a few years, a Scandinavian army makes a base in East Anglia.
It's not just one country, it's a collaboration of countries. My bad. So the armies joined together and just destroy Ireland. And what country is that? Is that Italy? That's where Italy is, right? I don't know. No, that's where the UK is. That's where because the UK is an island, isn't it? Yo, I'm getting confused. That's where the UK is. I'm pretty sure because the UK is on an island. I know that.
Marches north to conquer York and the Kingdom of Northumbria, swoops down to take half of Mercia, and loops back over to East Anglia to make it over half of the Saxon kingdom stomped, the only full survivor being Wessex. Unlike in Normandy, the Vikings weren't able to establish a proper state, but they did set the rulebook for this big new land, so we call it the Danelaw. Meanwhile, back in Wessex, King Alfred knew that it was nut up or shut up, so he reformed his state to meet the Scandinavian threat, and his successors later conquered up to create the Kingdom of England. And the Anglo-Danish hybrid culture in the north seemed pretty chill with the arrangement, what with all the easily arable land and good royal administration. Then there's Ireland, which didn't end up being a place where Scandinavians came to live, but it did become the money pot of the Viking world. Because after they cleaned out the countless monasteries, they built up coastal merchant towns at the bases of rivers to raid inland for slaves to sell at markets in Spain. Of course, they raided some Iberian towns along the way, but what did you expect? Norse settlers had more long-term luck in the wider Celtic worlds, like the Isle of Man, the Hebrides, Orkneys, Shetlands, and lowland Scotland. But if we want to talk about settlement colonization, we've got to go off the edge of the known world for the A-tier Viking accomplishment: Iceland. Situated smack in the middle of the North Atlantic, Iceland is a little out of the way and seems to have been discovered by accident, when some poor sailors overshot the Faroe Islands and presumably freaked the hell out when they discovered a giant uninhabited island about 2 postcodes out from Niflheim. Setting aside the non-zero chance of veering wildly off course while sailing over, it's easy to see why Iceland instantly became prime real estate.
That landscape is hard. Like that's see, like I want to go out of America so bad and just go to like another country and just experience the landscape, bro. That looks fire. That's a fire landscape, just the mountains and rivers. That looks tough.
Of good land, no locals to fight, and the Valkyries put on a light show every winter. Dinner and a show, what else do you need? After Iceland's discovery in the 870s-ish, fleets of Norwegians sail in to settle and create a quasi-democratic island assembly. As centuries go by, it remains a fairly insular corner of the Scandinavian world, and the old oral storytelling tradition gets put to writing, resulting in one of the most stacked literary cultures anywhere. The myths and historical sagas that we have aren't perfect, history is embellished, and mythology is through a post-Christian lens, but they're still the source for our understanding of Viking Age culture. So, as we've seen, the Scandinavian diaspora covered pretty much everywhere, but the Viking Age itself eventually wrapped up.
Hey Blue, this next part is insanely complicated. Mind if I step in?
Oh my word! Friend of the channel, Yellow aka Ludo History.
That's me.
You, my good sir, have 2 whole degrees in this field, which means on average we each have 1 degree in this field.
That's definitely not how math works.
Oh, I studied classics. Red's the one with the math degree.
Don't you dare bring me into this.
Yellow, why don't you take it from here?
So, Christianity was interacting in much more interesting ways than mere victimhood in the Viking Age. It's not like Norse people had no clue what this Christianity was. Traders had been marked with the sign of the cross from early on, full-scale missionary attempts had happened as early as the 820s, and readers in Europe would convert, sometimes even voluntarily. But the big wave of conversions among the Scandinavian elite happens in the late 10th century. Now, you'd think this would stop raids, but you'd be wrong. Knutar the Great was baptized in 1014, and he gets the distinction of most successful Viking, actually becoming King of England in 1016. And heck, the patron saint of Norway was a mercenary and raider in England in the 1010s too. So you can't exactly call conversion an ending. Christianity's link to the end of the Viking Age is even more tenuous in the Baltic. Sweden and Denmark kept raiding there well into the 12th century, though they eventually justified it as a crusade.
But you got to think, a lot of these they weren't doing that. They weren't like getting Christianized to because they wanted to get Christianized. A lot of them, so because a lot of them knew getting Christianized was a great way to put you in a better position, because already Christianity is one of the most the religion that's already sweeping across Europe. Christianity is already a religion that's already sweeping across Europe in general. You gotta think though. That's a power move. You know what? Hey, we're raiding these towns, but see, if I say I'm a Christian, especially if I'm a high ranking person in the Viking like order, and I turn Christian, and now I'm respected among the Christians. Now they're not going to be so apprehensive to me. Like, I can just go in and do what I want and just say, see, I was trying to turn them Christian. See that they were not Christian. I was trying to convert them. See, like, it's a power move. Because were these Vikings religious? Were these Vikings even religious? Were they? I know there's somebody that knows it. Please were they even religious? Or because I feel like if some of them were not religious before, they might have seen converting to Christianity as like some type of power move or some type of chess move. You know what I mean?
What Christianity did do is let local leaders use Christian models and tools, such as the tithe, to justify and consolidate their power. Doing so allowed for more centralization than was possible before, and models of sacral kingship assisted in state building in Scandinavia and the formation of the countries into very roughly the shapes they have today. This is a slow process though, and it wasn't like 1066 hit and they went, ding, we're now well-behaved Christian kingdoms. In fact,
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. He said they used it to justify when he used it to justify their actions. Exactly, that's what I was saying. They can turn Christian as a power move and then go and raid the country and say, hey, you know what I'm saying? They wouldn't convert to Christianity, so we had to make them.
Uh-oh, I'm running out of time. Phew, nailed it.
Whoopsies, that's the late medieval alarm, which means that if we go any further, I'm gonna start compulsively talking about Florence, so let's wrap it up here. Thanks so much for stopping by, Yellow. So it's clearly hard to put a firm end date on the Viking Age, because the methods, motivations, and goals all changed during that time, but 1066 does have a nice irony to it. King Harold of Norway tried to conquer England using some classic great army tactics, but was defeated in battle. But then, 1 month later, Duke William of Normandy led an army of knights at Hastings and won himself a kingdom. The Scandinavians who played by the old rules were left out in the cold, and the Scandinavians who adapted to their new homes and to changing worlds did a lot better for themselves. So, all told, the Viking Age is a class above simple piracy because it effectively terraformed the landscape of European politics, economics, and culture. And though their legacy has been appropriated in ways ranging from dubious to flat-out dangerous, the Viking Age proves that history only gets cooler the more we learn about it. Thank you so much for watching, and special thanks to Yellow for both helping out with the script and jumping in to talk about the lengthy denouement to the Viking Age. You can see Yellow analyzing the historical chops of popular video games over on Twitch TV/LudoHistory, and as always, thank you to the patrons who make this show possible. See you.
Alright. Definitely. I definitely do feel like I got a good base. I definitely got a good base with this video. Shout out to Overly Sarcastic Productions. Definitely I need somebody to drop a video. Drop some more videos. Drop something more. Because I am, like I said, I know I've learned about Napoleon. Like I know daggone near everything. Shout out to Epic History taught me about Napoleon. I need to go back to the Julius Caesar series on Kings and Generals. And we have the Vikings. You know what I'm saying? We diving into every bag on this channel, bro. We diving into every bag. We doing history. We doing crime videos. I'm doing everything, okay? This is gonna be like a variety lit channel. Like people come for what they come for type stuff. But anyway, thank you again for watching. Please hit that like if you enjoyed this video. Also drop more videos about like Vikings and about England, like around this age, around this time. Definitely drop some more videos. I love to learn because like I already know American history. Like I know American history. I know it. I know American history. So let's I'm gonna delve into something that I don't know. But anyway, thank you. Please have a great day. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on my post notifications if you haven't already. But anyways, be safe. Have a great day. Stay on the grind. I'm out. Peace.